Right. And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted to customize the taxonomy display view for a specific vocabulary or even a specific taxonomy term? There's a module for that. It's called Taxonomy Views Integrator, and it was created in September of 2009 by Derek Webb, though the most recent release was made by Kevin Quillen, who was a guest on the podcast in episodes 406 and 500. It has a 2.0.0 version available, which works with Drupal 8, 9, 10, and 11. It is actively maintained and has both security and test coverage, as well as documentation. And it has 13 open issues, 4 of which are bugs against the current branch, which is quite good considering the module is officially in use by over 24,000 sites. Now, after enabling this module, when you edit a vocabulary or a taxonomy term, users with the necessary permissions will see an option to specify a view to show tagged content. And you can also choose which display to use. You can create a new view from scratch or clone the taxonomy term view created by core, or use a view defined in code. Obviously, it's critical for the view to have a contextual filter for the taxonomy term itself. Using this module could allow you to customize the presentation on the view page, for example, to make the exposed filters more relevant, or even to split out the content. For example, if you wanted to list only news in the main view display and have events and blog posts listed separately in like attachment views. I found this module really helpful during some recent work on the Drupal event platform, so I thought I would share it with our listeners. So let's talk about Taxonomy Views Integrator.
Sorry, I still don't quite get what it's doing.
So okay, let me put it another way. So within views within Drupal, you can enable there's that taxonomy term
Yeah.
view,
Mhm.
and then you can customize that. But
Like,
then the changes that you make apply across all taxonomy terms on your site. So this allows you to make changes, but make them selective to either a specific vocabulary or even a specific individual taxonomy term.
okay, so you can keep the normal default Drupal slash taxonomy slash term slash whatever, but then each
Sorry.
individual, is it per vocabulary or is it per term? You can customize it. Or
You can do either or both.
oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm
That
not gonna lie, I'm still a little bit confused, but you guys just keep going.
Well, okay, so maybe it would help for me to explain a little bit about why I wanted to use it for the event platform. So I ended up in a recent set of changes basically implementing a multi-event architecture. So events exist within a site using the event platform as taxonomy terms. And then you have association. You basically tag all of the like sessions and BOFs and all of the different things, sponsors, all of that gets tagged as being related to an individual event. Now, what that would mean is when you go to the event page, like go to actually view the listing for the event, it would list all of that stuff in the default view. And
okay.
I could alter that one single view that applies to all taxonomy terms to basically not have it do all of that. But then that basically breaks the standard taxonomy view for all of the vocabularies across the site, even though I really only needed to make changes for how events display. So using Taxonomy Views Integrator allowed me to make changes that were specifically for how events display on there. And then if I wanted to, even on an individual event, I could say, maybe only have it show the most recent sessions during the call for sessions while it's open, and then switch to highlighted sessions later on in the process, or make those kinds of things, but
Yeah.
even for an individual event as well. So that's hopefully gives you a little more like an actual use case of where this module could be useful.
I think it's interesting, but it's funny because normally I just take a different approach. I just completely disable the default taxonomy view and write my own, and then use like rabbit hole or custom code to make sure that they link to whatever view that I want to. But it sounds like this is a nice way to just create the view, assign it, and then you don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot, I forgot in this case we're displaying the taxonomy directly and they're getting sent somewhere that they're not meant to be sent. So I can see this use case. It's a way to just basically hijack that that route essentially. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
But the name just threw me off a little bit. Why the word integrator at the end? I kept on expecting something different. It sounds more like a prettifier or I don't know, something.
Or taxonomy view overrides, or, I don't know.
Override would even be
Yeah.
better.
Because
Yeah,
naming
I don't think
naming
that's
modules is
integrator.
hard. I mean, that's probably what it
Yeah,
boils down to.
Can verify.
yeah, maybe.
Absolutely. All right. And does it work with, I imagine you didn't test this, but it's something that's always in my mind. Does it work with like translation? So if you have a taxonomy that has multiple languages, can you define different endpoints or
That's a great question. I don't recall having seen anything that would indicate you could set different views for different languages, but I would imagine you could probably use translations for the view itself that it points to.
okay. Yeah, that works. And the only reason why I think it would be, I mean, people can do all sorts of crazy things, but I was thinking particularly with the view, you might, I mean, I guess if you translate like the date formats already, then you're going to get that stuff output correctly anyway. But so maybe it's really not a non-issue, but I can see sometimes you need to override that stuff. Very cool. I'll have to keep this. I think this is going to be a hard one to keep in mind, maybe because of the name, but it does seem like it lets you kind of lean into how Drupal does things around taxonomy rather than kind of ripping out the whole system, which is always good. But
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like there was a period in the Drupal community where everything was sort of three-letter acronyms, which kind of makes me think that maybe when the machine name for this, which is TVI, was created, was harkens back to those days, and it feels like we've since kind of moved back away from that. So
yeah, I mean, this was you said 2009, so yeah, this definitely was in the height of Drupal. Well, it was right before Drupal 7. This was Drupal 6. Yeah, everything was e-
yeah,
everything was
ECK and all
yeah,
those good things. So yeah,
CCK. Yeah, yeah, they all three-letter acronyms. Well, Martin, you know that this was one of the rare modules of the week where it was it's a tough use case. It took both John and I a couple a couple of explanations, but I think it's a good one for people to be aware of. I'm gonna have to look at it because, like I said, it's kind of like the last piece of taxonomy that I still struggle with, and it always it feels like I'm fighting against Drupal when I'm writing those custom views because you like I said, you always have to make sure every time you're printing it, you're overwriting that route or something. So this might be a really clean way of modifying that. So yeah, I'll have to check it out. All right. So if folks wanted to get in touch with you and suggest another module of the week, what's the best way for them to do that?
we are always happy to talk about interesting modules in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.
Awesome. See you next week.
See you then.